Welcome to a new series I've just started called Act to Learn, where I choose random tech-oriented topics that interest me, set myself on a timer to not interfere with my main obligations, and just dive straight into them. The results of my learning progress within the given time range are presented in this video. Have a nice one and let's start. Today's topic struck me when I first saw a video of Sebastian Lake, I highly recommend checking him out, and deals with the implementation of sphere tracing. Well, that was the plan at least. Sphere tracing is a concept where you shoot out a ray and draw a circle around that point. You make the circle calculate the distance to the nearest object and set the radius of the circle to that value. As a consequence, the dynamic radius of the circle never quite touches the object, but strips at its edge. How's that useful, you ask? Well, if you repeat this behavior in a loop by drawing a new circle with the same properties at the position the aforementioned circle intersects with the ray, you have something I'd like to call an identification ray. You see, when a circle gets smaller and smaller, you instantly know that something's about to interfere with the ray. And when the radius falls under a given small number, something must be in the way. The initial idea I had was to use this behavior to create my own form of light source that wouldn't enlighten the object itself, so that stays unidentified, but only the path that is up ahead. So I started implementing the ray and the first circle that adopts its radius to the distance of the nearest object. Then I wanted to spawn more and more circles along the ray, and that is where I fucked it up. I'm glad I did. You see, I must have had an error in my code, cause the circles won't instantiate along the ray, but along the first drawn circle. And at first I was kinda disappointed, but I quickly found out that this had opened me many doors I could take. I played a bit with it and found out that I could render any 3D form I'd like to with this logic. And so I did. I started with circles, cause, well, that's where I started, and calculated some pretty beautiful shapes with it. I then changed the way I rendered my circle to a more generic function. You see, instead of drawing a circle directly, I switched to using the line renderer of Unity to draw the circle. I thought about how circles are made and quickly came up with the idea that a circle is nothing else but straight lines that are so small in length you could never tell they were straight lines. I put them behind each other, each time changing the angle of which they are connected, and I now had full control over how detailed and boxy my circle should be. So if I just used very few straight lines, I could also render more quadratic forms and shapes. With that done, I could also form shapes like these and these. I was pretty satisfied with the results I had to that point and wondered how I could expand this idea of rendering 3D shapes with a given logic. Thinking about it, I asked myself what would happen if I wouldn't instantiate the circles along another circle, but instantiate them along a straight line. To specify this, I had the idea of a drawing simulator, where you could take your mouse and draw anything you'd like. I would then render these drawn lines with the afore described method to add one dimension and making them 3D. So that when I draw 2D shapes, I simultaneously render them to be 3D in the background, and after the drawing has ended, you would have also drawn the shape in 3D. Because of the structure I used to instantiate the circles, I stored each one of them in a list and therefore had full control over every single circle that has been rendered. As a consequence, if someone wanted to change the radius or the width of something, you could simply mark the circles you wanted to modify and change the properties to your wish. With that, the drawing in 3D wouldn't just be one stiff adaptation of the 2D drawing, but would also be able to be modified for more detail. Of course, the same principle goes for color, width, height, and so forth. Unfortunately, as I came up with this idea, my ticket had exceeded its time limit and the adventure was over. I'm certain that I will come back to this idea when the time comes, but for this episode of Act to Learn, that's about it. I created a Git repository if anyone wanted to take a deeper look into the code I wrote. I hope you liked this video and I also hope that I see you next time. Have a nice one.